Welcome back, boils and ghouls. Excuse me, I had to do a lot of thinking for that Freaks episode. My brain is still sore. Thinking is hard, okay? And I had to do a lot of it to talk about the representation of disability in the 1930s. Ugh. Let's talk about something a little easier today, okay? Something totally not political. Hey, I know! Sleepaway Camp! That's just a dumb 80s slasher movie. There's no way I'd have to think about that one. Sleepaway Camp was released in 1983, during the height of the slasher genre. And in many ways, it was totally unexceptional. It got middling reviews and was frequently compared to Friday the 13th, due to the fact that both movies focused on teenagers at a summer camp, and the identity of the murderer was kept secret until the very last moment. In fact, the only reason why Sleepaway Camp stuck out to slasher fans at all was because of the twist ending. Ooh, a twist? I wonder what that could be. Since the film's release, Sleepaway Camp has gained quite a substantial cult following. Maybe the average Joe on the street won't recognize Sleepaway Camp, but ask any die-hard horror fan and they will know exactly what you're talking about. It spawned 3.5 sequels, all of which I'll get to at a later date. And it is currently intended to be the subject of a documentary produced by Felissa Rose herself. So yeah, quite impressive for an average, run-of-the-mill, totally not at all exceptional slasher movie from the 80s. Let's get into the movie now and see what all the hype was about. So we open up with a man taking his son and daughter out on a boat. Ugh, son, children, family bonding time? I hate it. Won't a boat just run them over already? Oh, it does. Good. Cuts to a few years later, we see one of the children, Angela, now living with her cousin Ricky and her aunt. We know very little about the aunt, besides the fact that she's a doctor who insists on constructing the medical records for her own children, and that her acting is supremely natural.
Any chips?
Why, of course. I believe there's a whole bag.
Well, I'm almost sure of it.
I see absolutely nothing wrong here. And that medical records thing? I'm sure that means nothing. Just a little quirk of hers, you know? Because, I mean, honestly, what could it mean? Angela herself has quite a few quirks, we discover. Being traumatized by the boating accident that killed her family, she no longer speaks, and she is deathly afraid of water. Sounds exactly like the kind of kid you want to send to summer camp. Let's go! Sunshine, sports, fresh air. God, is there anything this place can do to make itself more unpleasant? Well, how about have pedophiles on the staff? The kitchen staff are standing by, watching as the children arrive, when suddenly the head chef starts making sexual comments about them. And the others just laugh. But don't worry, before you get offended, remember, it was the 80s. It was a different time. Pedophiles were funny back then. Nowadays, this conversation would be horrifying and grounds for his immediate firing. But not in the 80s, apparently. So the kids start settling in, and surprise, surprise, the weird mute girl doesn't really fit in. We all know that Angela's gonna gain a bully, so let's skip the pretenses and just introduce her. Judy. Judy is an evil slut. We know this because the first thing that we're told about her is that she has big boobs. And big boobs equals evil slut, obviously. And you know the thing that makes Judy really hate Angela? When Angela, despite being mute and weird, receives male attention. Like any male attention. at all. I don't know why Judy is so surprised that the boys like Angela. I mean, I know that she's supposed to be the big shot at camp with her big tits and all, but have you met boys? They'll hump any girl that stands still long enough, and considering Angela's near catatonic state and obvious femininity, she definitely qualifies. So anyway, a good portion of this movie just follows the kids getting settled at summer camp. Ricky has his friends, but Angela continues acting weird. For instance, she won't eat anything. This prompts one of the counselors to leave a mute, traumatized girl alone with the pedophile chef to find her something good to eat. And yes, this starts to go in exactly the direction you're afraid it will. But fortunately, Ricky rushes in to save Angela at the last moment. And because this was the 80s and nobody cared about anything back then, the chef isn't at all spoken to when he follows a pair of fleeing children while buttoning up his pants. Seriously, I know it was a different time, but did they take any precautions against, anything back then? Or did you just get told to toughen up over everything? But okay, this is a slasher movie and we just established that the chef deserves to die. How's he gonna get it? Well, standing over a massive pot of boiling water, some child pulls the stool up from under him, and he receives third-degree burns all over his body. The special effects are pretty decent for the time, too, and the camera lingers long and lovingly over his agonized screams. You'd almost feel sorry for the guy if he didn't deserve every second of it. In fact, that is one note that I'll make right now. The deaths in this movie are all pretty creative and well shot. They all follow essentially the same formula. We get a scene proving that they somehow deserve to die, usually because they're a big bully, and this is then followed by a gruesome death. For instance, one guy taunts a girl about water snakes, the whole thing being an obvious innuendo to get in her pants. Shortly after that, he drowns in the lake, and when his body is found, there are snakes in his mouth. Another bully gets a beehive dropped on their head. And while we're on the topic, I know I said I wouldn't get political in this video, but I do think this is the perfect opportunity to mention that we all have to do our part to save the bees. And all of this is happening around the primary plot, which follows Angela and Ricky and their social struggles at summer camp. You see, as much as Angela's weirdness most certainly attracts bullies, it also attracts something else. Young love. Meet Paul. He starts talking to Angela after Ricky saves her from bullies one day. And she's so taken with him that she actually speaks back to him. It's kind of adorable. Honestly, doesn't it just take you back? Being trapped in the sunshine, not wanting to talk to anyone, falling in love for the first time, pouring boiling water over a pedophile. However, things in this movie start to take a turn for the worse when Paul starts to make more sexual advances towards Angela. She asks him to stop, but Paul obviously missed some consent classes because he keeps going, causing Angela to flash back to that time that she watched her father have sex with another man. Random? Also, I'm cool with whatever two consenting adults want to do in the bedroom. But that being said, why are these two just totally cool with having sex in front of two loudly giggling children? Holy fuck, I can understand getting caught up in the moment, but still. Anyway, flashing back to her father's sex life, is apparently what convinces Angela once and for all to start pushing Paul away. Is there some sort of correlation here, or, what's with the random gay? I mean, I guess I did say that queer people improve everything, but, this seems random. But back to Paul, hurt and dejected. He of course does the one thing that all heartbroken people do. Hook up with the first slut you can find. Judy, you've got big tits, you'll do. Angela catches them in the act and just walks away. But it isn't over yet. Come on, we all know Angela is the killer. She's the only weird kid at camp, it's obvious. So we have to get her good and riled up for that killing spree we all know is coming. Not content with just stealing Angela's boyfriend, Judy also convinces her best friend Meg to pick Angela up and force her kicking and screaming into the water. Come on, guys, didn't you watch Friday the 13th? This is how Jason Voorhees happen. Unlike Jason, Angela doesn't drown here. But this does cause her and Ricky to get together and swear that they won't get away with this. Oh wait, they're children, so I guess they won't get away with this. Cue the climactic killing spree. There are still a few brutal death scenes that happen here, but this movie doesn't really have much in terms of, progression. They aren't much better or worse than the previous death scenes, I mean. For instance, see Meg. She just gets stabbed through the shower. The camp director gets an arrow through his throat. And Judy gets raped with a hot curling iron? Holy fuck! I mean, I know she had big boobs, but still. She was only 14 years old and she got raped with a fucking curling iron. As all of this is happening, we keep cutting to Ricky and Angela, just to see what they're up to at the time. Ricky is getting food out of the kitchens and Angela has approached Paul. And it looks like she got over that fear of intimacy that watching her gay father gave her for some reason. Because now she's asking Paul to take off his clothes. Cut back to the rest of the camp counselors discovering the bodies. And they head out to track everyone down. Keep everyone together in this time of crisis. But when they find Angela, they find her cradling Paul's severed head in her lap. Oh, that is so cute. Relationship goals. She stands up and turns around and she has a dick. What? I don't see the big deal. I have one too. It's in a jar in my pantry along with a few other body parts. Don't cheat on me, that's all I have to say about that. But anyway, let's talk about that twist for a minute here. So in the context of the plot, Angela was not the little girl from the beginning of the movie. She was the little boy, and she lost her sister and her father in the boating accident. When she got adopted by Aunt Crazy over here, she apparently decided that there were enough boys in the house with Ricky, and what she really wanted was a daughter. So she forced young Angela to dress like a girl and act like a girl and answer to a girl's name and all that jazz. I'm gonna have to get political for a minute here, aren't I? Oh, fuck. Choose a nice, safe slasher movie and there's a trans woman in it. Just my luck. Okay, fine. Let's get this over quick because I don't want to think any more than you want to hear me talk about gender. So Angela's story doesn't really make sense if you try to think about her as a realistic trans woman. The movie seems to be implying that she became transgender as a result of abuse, but that isn't how transgender works. It's more something you're born with, you know? You don't really change genders because your crazy aunt forces you to put on a dress. But regardless, Angela seems pretty comfortable living as a girl. I'm not gonna say she seems happy, but there's no indication that she wants to be anything other than Angela. So, I guess it's just, lucky that Aunt Crazy decided to do this to a child that was actually born trans. See, I'm already confused. Thinking is hard, you guys. But maybe we have to divorce Angela from the realistic trans experience and just look at the reasons why the scriptwriters might have had to make Angela trans. Well, the moment that Angela's gender identity is revealed is simultaneously the moment that we find out she's a serial killer. So, I think it's pretty obvious that some moral judgments are being made. But more than that, we don't find out that Angela is trans because she goes into some great detailed monologue about her past or anything like that. We find out because we see her naked body, covered in blood, while she's moaning like an animal. I don't think it's a leap to say that we're supposed to be disturbed and disgusted by Angela's body. And for more reasons than just because children shouldn't appear naked in film. The horror of this scene, I would assume, comes down to one of two things. The idea of trans women as being traps, which plays on the heterosexual male fear of being seduced by a beautiful woman, only to later discover that she has a penis. A fear that, might I add, has real-life consequences, considering it's been used in court to defend violence against trans women. Or, on the other hand, it might be playing on the heterosexual male fear of emasculation. Maybe you can become a woman if your crazy aunt forces you to put on a dress. It's hard to say. This is the 80s after all, and the only thing we know about gender is it exists. Or, considering this is the 80s, and most of the discourse that I found around Angela discusses her as a boy rather than as a trans woman, there may also be the implication that girls are too soft and delicate to be a slasher villain. So the only possible way for Angela to be the killer is if she secretly had a penis all along. Which is bullshit. I'm calling bullshit. I've been a slasher villain for how long? And I am all woman, baby. And so is Angela, for that matter. I don't care, I'm claiming her for my gender. The slasher villain lineup is already a bit of a sausage fest. We women need more representation. So Angela, you're up, honey. In either case, Angela is not trans in the sense of, accurately representing trans women. She's trans in the sense of trans women are scary, their bodies are foreign, they might want to sleep with poor, unsuspecting straight men, and we don't like what we can't understand. Before I proceed, I just want to make a little aside here, just so there's no misunderstanding. In reality, trans women's bodies are gorgeous. It's this movie's use of an unjustified cultural fear that is truly disgusting. Also, girls with big boobs, you're not all sluts. And sluts, you're pretty okay too. And with all of that being said, what do we do with Sleepaway Camp? Honestly, now that I know the twist ending, I don't really know what to do with this movie. It's hard to not like Angela, even if we are supposed to be repulsed by her body at the end of the movie. But throughout the majority of the movie's runtime, she's just this adorable, quirky little girl, mercilessly bullied for being weird. And she has the sweetest antifreeze love story with Paul. It honestly is a little disappointing when you realize they can't be together. She is, in some ways, the final girl of the movie. And she's also the killer, which is kind of an awesome twist when you think about it. And if it wasn't for all of the, awkward politics around her being a serial killer and an abuse victim, I'd almost want to say that this is one of the rare sympathetic portrayals of a trans woman in pre-fourth wave feminist media. But then again, the more you think about it, the messier it gets. Otherwise, this movie is pretty fun on its own merits. The child actors are all cast age appropriate, which is actually pretty rare to see in, well, any movie. And they're actually better actors than many of the adults. Looking at you, Aunt Crazy.
Goodness, no. No, that wouldn't do at all.
Not to mention, it is kind of refreshing to see kids act like genuine kids. They swear, they're weirdly sexual, they bully other kids. Hell, even Ricky, who we are supposed to like, gets some lighthearted bullying towards other kids in. And no moral judgments are made about that. It's kind of weird. The death scenes are pretty fun, and in some cases, even brutal. All in all, this movie just seems to exist on some sort of weird otherworldly plane, between the inconsistent acting, the casual bullying, and the political incorrectness. Honestly, try to imagine this movie getting made nowadays. I mean it. Try. Is there any aspect they wouldn't change? It's a weird watch, but it's one that I strangely enjoy. Perhaps because I can't think of anything like it. And hey, female slasher villain. How cool is that? Honestly, it's enough to get me excited about the rest of this franchise. So join me next time, boils and ghouls, because summer isn't over yet.